Welcome to Eat Well, Travel Better, the Business of Food Travel podcast with Eric Wolf and Ashi Vale, where we help you become a better industry professional by gaining inspiration from some of the world's most successful people in the food and beverage tourism industry. With each episode, we meet these leaders and examine their secrets of success. We reveal the obstacles and challenges they have faced, along with their solutions and triumphs, and give you ideas and inspirations for many of the same business issues that you may be facing as well. And now for today's episode. I'm Eric Wolf, and I'll be your host today for episode 28 of Eat Well, Travel Better, the Business of Food Travel podcast. And joining me today is co-host Ashi Vale. Today, we'll be speaking with Zina Sorensen and Vasil Zlatev. Zina and Vasil met in 2012 during their master's program in Environmental Policy and Management at the International Institute for Industrial Environmental Economics in Lund, Sweden. Vasil's background is in environmental economy and policy, while Zina's background is in hospitality and tourism. Both fell in love with the wines and wine regions they experienced while traveling around Bulgaria in 2013. Both are enthusiastic about sustainable and authentic tourism, so in 2013, Zina moved to Plovdiv, Bulgaria's second largest town, and co-founded Bulgaria Wine Tours a year later. While Zina manages the day-to-day operations of Bulgaria Wine Tours, Vasil leads most of the tours himself. Welcome, Zina and Vasil.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Ashi. This is Zina.
Thank you for the invitation to be on the podcast.
We are so excited to have you on the show. And Zina, I would love to find out what made you fall in love with Bulgaria, because that's not where you're from, yes?
No, I'm from Denmark. So I had never even been to Bulgaria. I hardly even knew where it was before I met Vasil in Sweden while we were studying our master's degree back in 2012. And in 2013, I ended up going a couple of times to visit Vasil and ended up actually moving there after I finished my degree in 2013. So I have to say that what brought me to Bulgaria and made me fall in love with the country was actually Vasil.
Oh, usually she says it's the wine, but thank you.
Love and food, a great combination.
Yes, it sure is.
So guys, it's not really expected that one would hear about wines from Bulgaria, and I think it's really interesting that you decided to start a wine tour company. A lot of people really don't know what to expect when you say Bulgarian wine or you talk about Bulgaria. There's just this big question mark in people's minds. And I had the good fortune to meet you, Zina, at World Travel Market this year. And we were sampling the Bulgarian wines, and I was absolutely blown away by the quality. I mean, some of them were really world-class wines. And I get it now because I've sampled it, but it's a hard task to just say, we're going to do wine tours in Bulgaria. Tell us about the challenges that you have faced and how you're overcoming that, because you have such a great product. So how are you packaging that to tell the world about it when they don't know what to expect?
So you're absolutely right. People don't know that Bulgaria has good wines. I think that part of the issue there is that when you are, let's say in Western Europe, and you walk into your local supermarket or even your local wine shop, you would be hard-pressed to find Bulgarian wine on the shelf. So people don't really know it. It's very unknown. And in addition to that, Bulgaria has perhaps suffered a little bit from a bad image, because there was actually a lot of Bulgarian wine being produced in the 1970s and 1980s. But at that time, Bulgaria was a communist regime, and everything was state produced in mass quantities. And so what was being exported to the rest of the world was mass produced wines that perhaps were not of the best quality. And so some people, especially people of a particular age, might be still associating Bulgarian wine with bad quality. But what has happened over the years, and especially in the last 10 to 15 years, is that the quality of Bulgarian wines has increased exponentially. And so what we're now challenged with is trying to get the word out, trying to spread the word about the high quality of Bulgarian wines. And so we're slowly trying to make people more aware about the fact that Bulgaria not only produces wines, but produces really good wines. And it's a really, really tough challenge.
Zina, can you tell us a little bit about the history? Has Bulgaria been producing wine for decades and centuries, or is this a more recent event?
Bulgaria has actually been producing wines for for millennia, so not even just centuries, but for thousands and thousands of years. What people don't know, unfortunately, that Bulgaria is one of the countries that first started to produce wines. And back then, we're talking 4th, 5th century BC. This was actually before Bulgaria was even Bulgaria. At the time, we had Thracian tribes living on the lands that are now Bulgaria. And the Thracians, who lived approximately the same time as the ancient Greeks, were making wine in Bulgaria. We have a very, very long history of making wine in this country that started 5, 6, 7,000 years ago and has continued to today. People don't know that. People know, perhaps they'll associate Greece with being a very old wine producing country. Perhaps they'll also associate Georgia with being a very old producing country. But Bulgaria is actually also up there in the top in terms of the oldest producing countries in the world.
That's fascinating. And how are you getting the word out now?
Well, we are trying different channels. We are obviously using social media and our website. We have a small blog section that used to write more often on the blog section. So we also use our website, social media, but as Eric met Zina at WTM in London, we also use this type of more traditional travel markets and expos to really try to spread the word out. And sometimes, especially when we go to Denmark for holidays or for some other reason, we try to do tastings every time we travel abroad, and mainly in Denmark, just to educate people. Hey, there's Bulgarian wine and there's good Bulgarian wine.
Are you getting any support from industry or government while you're doing this, or is Bulgaria Wine Tours basically the driver of wine tourism in the country?
There's some support to some extent. For example, the presentation of Bulgarian wine at WTM London, also ITB Berlin, this is sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism. In that respect, there's some support. Also, when we go and just initiate tastings ourselves, when we try to do tastings in other countries, we usually partner with the wineries themselves or imports of Bulgarian wine in that country. And usually we will get the bottles either at preferential prices or free for the tasting. But outside of that, it's quite a lot of our own efforts to really try to promote Bulgaria. We also actually work a lot with different media and bloggers. For example, once they visit Bulgaria, we are very open to cooperation with them. And this is obviously something that we invest in, time and resources. So for that part of the promotion, we don't get any state help. Of course, all the wineries are very keen to partner with us when we have this type of, let's say, media or blogger trips. But so it's a bit mixed. There's something happening, but there could be a little bit more, especially in the strategic planning and strategic approach to marketing Bulgarian wine and Bulgarian wine tourism.
I'd like to ask you guys about that because I have noticed a commonality in Eastern Europe. So I was talking to a tour operator from Albania, also at World Travel Market, and he was telling me a lot of the same things about the state-run wineries and how they really cranked out really bad wine. I look at what is just some momentum that's trying to build in Poland. Hungary is paying attention to food tourism, so is the Czech Republic and Slovakia. But really, I would say it's only Slovenia and Croatia that have really, really achieved any level of success with food or wine tourism in Eastern Europe. It's a hard task to take on, but I think also you have tremendous potential because so many people have already been to France and Spain and Italy. They're looking for the next big thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of people looking for new destinations and new experiences, we think it's a little bit something that is also challenging for us is the fact that, in fact, there were wars on the Balkans until 20 years ago or so. It's only been recently when people have started looking at that part of Europe as, oh, actually, it's safe to go there now, and there's a lot of options to go there, flying or driving from other European countries. And there's actually interesting things coming out. So I think we'll probably see a bit of a rise in people looking more southeast when traveling in Europe, just because now there's been, as I said, time of peace here on the Balkans. It's easier to get to those countries.
You were saying that there are some good air connections now to Plovdiv, your city?
With the recent development of all these low-cost airlines, such as Ryanair, Wizz Air, etc., there are very good connections from especially other European countries to come into Bulgaria. Sofia, which is the capital of the country, is still the largest airport and has a lot of flight connections. So it's not only easy, it's also affordable. Plovdiv, which is the second largest city of Bulgaria, which is where we are based, Vasil and I, has a very small airport with just a few flight connections. So it's not a very big airport, but it is definitely possible to get to Plovdiv Airport through just a few, just like a handful of other European countries. And then we also have an airport at the Black Sea coast. We have two actually there, two major ones. Varna Airport is located in Varna at the Black Sea, and Burgas Airport is located at the Black Sea coast. And those two airports mainly cater to charter flights who are only coming in during the season, which is during the summer.
For travelers who are coming to Bulgaria for the first time, who are interested in wine and food, which 3 destinations would you recommend they travel to and why?
Bulgaria has 5 wine regions, at least for now. That's what we recognize, about 5 wine regions. We feel that each single wine region offers something quite unique to the traveler. We do wine tours in all 5 regions, but we personally feel like it depends on your interests and what you're interested in. For example, if you'd like to go to a region and visit many wineries, we would definitely suggest going down from Sofia, going down to the southwest part of Bulgaria, which is called Melnik. It's actually called the Struma River Valley region, and Melnik is a sort of sub-region of the larger region. Now, that region is the most famous, if you can say it in that way. It's famous for having produced wine consistently for many centuries with no interruptions. It's also famous because of the so-called Melnik wine. So the Melnik wine is produced from a native grape, sort of one of our local Bulgarian grapes called the broad-leaved Melnik vine. And there's also another Melnik grape called the Melnik 55. And those two grapes are not only native, they're actually endemic, which means they only grow in that region, which is something very unique. When I say endemic, I mean that they literally cannot grow anywhere else. You will only find them there. People sort of like that about the region. There's many wineries clustered together, which allows you to sort of visit a lot of wineries. And then, so that would be sort of number one, or one of my say top 3. That it is very difficult for me to choose, but that one is the most easy to get to, organized for a wine tourist. The second region is the region where we're based. That region is the largest region in Bulgaria. It's called the Thracian Valley, and it's to the south. It's in the south of the country. And the Thracian Valley is a very warm region, and we also have a few really interesting local grapes here that people can discover. It's mostly red wine in the Thracian Valley. But here, what I would say is interesting is the options to do different things. You can combine sort of ecotourism, rural tourism with wine tasting. You can go hiking. You can enjoy some spa. So we have a lot of spa resorts in this part of Bulgaria. So if you want to stay at a spa resort and then go visit wineries, sort of combine those two things, you could do that in the Thracian Valley. And also we have Plovdiv in the Thracian Valley. It's almost pretty much at the center. Plovdiv is not only where we live, which makes it great, but it's also the most cultural city in Bulgaria. It has a lot of history. It is actually the oldest continuously inhabited city in all of Europe. So it's essentially the oldest city in Europe and one of the oldest in the whole world. So if you come to Plovdiv, you will see Roman ruins, you will see ruins from the Byzantine era, you will see ruins from the Thracian era. You'll get a lot of culture and history, and you can combine that easily with the visiting wineries because there are wineries located all around Plovdiv, which is also why we actually run a lot of day tours from Plovdiv.
You know, you have just convinced me. You know, it's funny when people always ask me where I want to travel to next, and that list for me is extremely short. I have to tell you, it's not even one hand. I can count the destinations that I still would like to go to, but I'm adding Plovdiv to that list because, well, it's just stunning, the pictures that I find online. But you've done a great job to sell me on it. Everything that you've said, everything we've talked about, so I'm kind of excited.
We'd love to have you, Eric, anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, hopefully I'll see you in 2020. That would be nice. And Vasil, I think I really like this quote that you are known for. You like to say, can you name 5 wineries in Bordeaux? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that is brilliant. And, everyone does talk about Bordeaux or Burgundy, but tell us about your quote because I love it.
Well, I'm using that quote quite a bit, or that expression quite a bit, because when we talk about promoting Bulgarian wine, Zina and I keep saying that at the moment of our development as a wine country, right now, our task is to promote the fact that Bulgaria makes wine. Yes, as you heard, there's 5 wine regions. A lot of wineries want to see a further segregation of those regions because some of them are too broad, so there's different micro-regions within those regions. But at that point of our development, it's very important to promote Bulgaria having good wines. So that, and I give the example, we have to become what Bordeaux has become. And I always say that if you walk in right now in a wine bar, anywhere in the world, and we ask 10 people, does Bordeaux make good wine? Probably 9, even if not 10 people will say yes. And then if we ask the same 10 people, name me 5 wineries from Bordeaux, I think probably 3 might be able to say 5 wineries from Bordeaux. And I'm kind of using this analogy just to kind of provoke people to think that that's what should happen to Bulgarian wine. When someone asks, does Bulgaria make good wine? The answer should be yes, not so much, oh, this winery makes good wine or that region makes good wine. At this stage of our development, we should be promoting Bulgarian wine as a brand, as a whole. So that's why I'm using this example and this quote, let's say.
It's very true. This is really an issue of culinary destination branding. And we see this a lot where destinations have a name for themselves. But like you said in your quote, you can name the region of Bordeaux or Burgundy or the Rhone Valley. People know all of these places, but they don't know necessarily the exact wineries. And I think the challenge for Bulgaria and really a lot of destinations in Eastern Europe is to develop that culinary brand. Zina, you had talked about some of the grapes were different, and I tasted grape varietals that I didn't even know when we were in London with your sommelier. And I think there's so much potential there, but it takes time to build that. And do you think, will Bulgaria ever develop a culinary brand, or is that just something that they don't have the vision for right now?
I hope they will develop a brand. I think, especially in the last couple of years, or maybe a year, the last year, there's been quite a lot of discussion about branding of Bulgarian wine, but also developing at least a direction, if not a strategy, for presenting Bulgaria's tourism with another face, not just with the beach and ski holidays, but also with the food, wine, traditions. I cannot give a definite answer whether this will happen, but in the last year, we kind of seen the first small steps to this being happening, both from the industry, from the business, and also some indication from the authorities, from the Ministry of Tourism. So hopefully we made the first small steps. Let's see if we can walk the path, so to speak.
It does take small steps. And I think, especially when you're coming from that ex communist background, this is the same conversation I've had with many of your colleagues throughout Eastern Europe, Albania, Poland, and so on, Moldova, even places like Armenia, where they have that former top down influence and just kind of shuffling out the old guard and bringing in the new guard and newer people, younger people, fresh ideas. It's going to take time to change, but change is out there. Having this conversation, I'm already getting ideas in my mind of how we could brand Bulgaria's culinary scene. So we definitely there's a trip planned in the future, I'm sure of it.
There's tons of things to do, we think, in that direction.
So what do you guys do when you're not doing tours? What do you do in your free time?
For example, I like to play football, soccer. So I spend some time doing that in my free time. And just being together, because actually, even though we have a business together, sometimes it feels like we don't really spend too much time together with Zina. So we like to spend some time together, just, meet friends, see family. Coming from a southern country like Bulgaria, the importance of extended family. So we have often some family occasions to attend to. But yeah, basically what I enjoy in my free time, just spending as much time with other people outside of work that I don't usually see.
And I just work a lot, basically. I just feel like I'm constantly working, because when it's your own business, when you're a small business owner, it's all about the effort you put in. So I find myself working, in the evenings, in the weekends. And while we're such a small business, and as we've mentioned a few times now, food travel and wine tourism is so new to this country. So a lot of my time is also spent on trying to promote the destination. So I also write a lot of articles. I try to get them posted on different websites. I'm always sort of trying to educate myself on digital marketing and social media and SEO and how to improve our website and all that, because we're a small business and we're doing it on our own, right? So I'm not just sales, I'm also marketing, I'm also social media, I'm also accounting, I'm also business development, I'm also talking to my customers and all these things. I work a lot. And when I'm not working, I try to go to the gym, see my friends, go to the spa, spend some time with my husband. Yeah. When there's free time, we spend it on sort of regular things.
I imagine cooking together as well.
That's a little bit of we're not very good in the kitchen with other people.
Usually I cook and he cleans. That's how it usually works.
Nice, nice. Well, I know what you're saying, Zina, about wearing many hats. Association that I run, it's exactly the same. We're not a big organization, and so sometimes we have to pick up the slack and do many different things. But you have an extra challenge because you're promoting tourism, so you're kind of acting like a tourism office. You are promoting Bulgaria as a destination, which is not really an easy task, but I think once people see the pictures or taste the wine or have some food, they start to warm to it. But then you have to sell them on a wine tour. So you've actually got 3 sales jobs that you're doing. That must be hard.
Yes, we've got a lot of barriers to overcome. In the first place, a lot of people don't even know where Bulgaria is. So you run into the first challenge, which is just educating people on the fact that this country exists and that it's a great place to travel to. So you're trying to sell it as a tourist destination. And you're also trying to get people to understand that some people might have heard of Bulgaria, but associate it with beach tourism. So summer vacations at the Black Sea coast, which is the largest tourism type in this country, or other people might associate it with skiing because we have very good ski resorts here. So for winter tourism, but then the rest of the year, Bulgaria is quite empty. And even at a national level, there's a lot of discussions regarding how to make Bulgaria an all year round destination. Actually, way back in 2013, I wrote my master's thesis on how Bulgaria can diversify its tourism product and how it should be looking into alternative tourism types, such as food tourism, wine tourism, ecotourism, spa tourism, adventure tourism, all of these other types of tourism that would allow them to diversify away from sort of these other sort of mass tourism types that they've been known for so many years. And that would also help them in not only becoming an all year round destination, but also it would help the economy of Bulgaria, but also the rural economies, because a lot of alternative types of tourism might incentivize people to get out of the mass cities and the beach resorts and actually go inland or up into the mountains, into nature, and discover the authenticity of Bulgaria.
And something that we have to, because of these challenges that you mentioned, Zina mentioned, we have to take a wider approach to marketing. Sometimes when we talk with friends, for example, they sometimes don't understand, oh, why did you do this event where you promote Bulgaria, not you promoted the destination, but not your company strictly? Isn't that a little bit of a waste of time? But no, it's not, because after, as Zina said, the first barrier to overcome is people to even consider Bulgaria as an interesting destination for tourism. So we do a lot of, in our marketing, we try to just post as many or talk about or post or write about as many interesting things about Bulgaria as possible, obviously through the prism of food and wine, but we just have to take this wider marketing approach just because of all these barriers along the way for us.
Zina, what you were saying about how the country was starting to look at different ways to differentiate its tourism and not just be a beach or a ski destination, whether it's spa, whether it's food and wine, whether it is trekking, golfing, there's all different kinds. Really, what you're describing is diversifying a product portfolio. And that is something that a lot of destinations have discovered. They can't be known for just one thing. They can't be known just for history or architecture or theater. They need something else to capture people. And I think it's great that that's starting to happen now in Bulgaria, because you need to do it and it will happen.
I certainly hope so, because, so that was sort of the first barrier, but then the second barrier would then, in the context of wine and food, when you ask anybody perhaps in Western Europe or the rest of the world, do you know Bulgarian wines? Do you know Bulgarian food? They'd probably tell you no. So then comes the second challenge, which is actually trying to educate people on the fact that Bulgaria does have wonderful wines, does have delicious food. Because, people might think of, we're talking about this part of the world, many people know about Greek wines and Greek food, right? But they don't know about Bulgarian wines, Bulgarian food. So then comes the challenge of actually trying to educate them on the fact that there is good wine and good food here, and then comes the challenge of convincing them to come for a tour here that focuses on the wines, the food, the culture. Yeah, so there are a lot of challenges there. That's also one of the reasons why it's taking its time and it's a slow process, and simply also because of the fact that for so long Bulgaria has been just focusing on beach tourism and ski tourism. So all these other types of tourism is very new to everyone. So everyone's just trying to figure everything out, and it'll come slowly, slowly.
Get the most out of your career and join our GastroTerra Food Travel Trade Network today. Visit us at gastroterra.org or click join now on our website at worldfoodtravel.org.
On a related note, Zina, we sound excited and ready to come to Bulgaria. Can you tell us a little bit more about the foods, your favorite foods, and what we should be looking for?
Bulgarian food is, and I'm speaking from sort of an outsider perspective, right? Because I'm not Bulgarian. To me, Bulgarian food is rustic and it's simple. It's delicious, meaning that it's full of flavors. Something that really surprised me when I moved to this country is even in a larger city such as Plovdiv, you would go to the local fruits and vegetable market to get your fruits and veggies. And I have not seen sort of that type of local market in many, many years. So that's just perfectly normal here. The fruits and vegetables that you can get are the ones that are in season, and that's it. You can't get anything else if it's not in season. So it's all fresh, it's all locally sourced. And then moving on from fruits and vegetables, which is a very large part, especially vegetables, of the Bulgarian cuisine. We're kind of almost famous for these sort of really large salads. And a typical Bulgarian meal would consist of having a salad to start with. Moving on to, let's say, main course. They're very fond of their meats here. So a lot of grilled meats, a lot of stews, especially in the winter. So, and everything's fresh, even the meat, right? So for me, it's fresh, it's local, it's simple but rustic. They place a lot of sort of importance on the food being healthy, local, and authentic. So, for example, it's very nostalgic when talking about food that the food is as good as your grandmother makes it, right? So it's all about how the Bulgarian grandmothers have cooked the meals and meals that remind them of their childhood. So that's like very typical for Bulgaria. Big salads, a lot of meat platters, a lot of grilled meat platters, grilled veggies. And one more thing that perhaps should be noted, and it's not exactly food, is their local spirits. So the local spirit in Bulgaria is rakia, sort of their national beverage. And rakia is like a high alcohol, it's a distilled beverage, a little bit like grappa. And Bulgarians will drink rakia very often. In fact, so often that it was shocking to me at first when I first moved here. And they'll typically drink this high alcohol spirit at the beginning of the meal, which is a little unusual, I think, for most of us. So Bulgarians would always pair the starter with rakia, which is anywhere from 40% to what, maybe 70?
Well, 40% is the one that's sold in the market, legally sold in the market, but then the homemade one can be over 40, all the way up to 70 and plus. But that's obviously the one that's made at home, not really the ones for sale in the market.
Wow. And you start the meal by drinking a bit of the alcohol. Where does that tradition come from?
I'm not sure, because I kind of started thinking about it a little bit. after a lot of our guests have pointed this out, that we start with this high spirit at the beginning of the meal, and doesn't that kill your butts, basically receptors. But when I think about it, our salads are, a lot of them, especially in the summer, are tomato based. And tomatoes are very acidic. It's difficult to pair a tomato-based salad with wine, really, even with white wine. And I wonder whether that has something to do with it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure where this exactly starts from. Why do we do it at the beginning? I think maybe it comes from the fact that maybe in the past people drink mainly that spirit rakia throughout maybe the meal even, whereas now it's very common to start with rakia, with the spirit, with the salad, but then move to wine or beer for the main course, especially if it's a meaty main course. So I'm not quite sure what's the right answer to this question.
Vasil, I was speaking with someone from Bulgaria a little while ago, and they were talking about the rose industry in Bulgaria and just how much they make from roses. And I never heard that before. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Bulgaria is famous for the rose oil. And there's a region just 1 hour north from Plovdiv, from where we are, called the Rose Valley, which is actually a wine region as well. It's the smallest wine region. But in terms of the roses, that's the area where almost all of the rose plantations in Bulgaria are. It's a valley between a higher mountain, which is the Balkan Mountain to the north, and lower mountains, we call them the middle forest. So apparently this type of terroir and ventilation that valley gets, it's very suitable for the Damascena rose, which is usually the type of rose used for rose oil. And rose oil is used in cosmetics, in pharmaceutical products, and supposedly Bulgarian rose oil is of the highest quality. Bulgaria is not the biggest producer at the moment. I think Turkey and Iran maybe produce more in terms of quantity, but the quality of Bulgarian rose oil is very famous and is deemed to be one of the highest from the rose producing countries.
So that is really exciting to hear from me, and I'm going to give you a product development idea here. So I am from Portland, Oregon in the United States, and that is known as the City of Roses. They've got the International Rose Test Garden there, and roses everywhere, and the roses grow really well, and it's just, it truly is a city of roses. So I was so overwhelmed by this that when I moved to Portland, I created a cocktail called the Rose Martini. I was trying to convince the restaurants in the city to embrace it as kind of a signature cocktail of Portland. Lo and behold, they weren't really interested. So if you guys would like to try and sell this to the rose producers or the bars or restaurants in that area, be my guest. But have you ever had a rose martini? It is just sublime. It's amazing.
Oh no, never. We were just in Portland this summer, and we didn't go to I saw the rose garden and all that, but we didn't have time to go.
What's in it, Eric?
Well, it's my secret recipe. No, actually, well, the way we did it, we would cultivate organic rose petals. So we would get organic rose petals, either our own or neighbors, where we knew that they did not use any pesticides or anything on them. And we would kind of steep them in simmering water with some sugar. And you boil that down and you create a simple syrup, basically. So the rose petals have been diffused into the simple syrup. And then you mix the simple syrup with vodka of your choice. And I usually would go for a vodka that's been distilled several times to remove a lot of the impurities. So in the States, that would be something like a Sky vodka. A Grey Goose would go really well. I think any of the potato vodkas, because they're a little smoother, would work really well. They something about potato vodka, it just kind of cuts the alcohol a little bit. And then you just have to decide the ratio that you want. And I think we were going with 1/3, 2/3, but it's just mix it to taste.
Oh, it sounds great, Eric.
So now we have another reason to come to Bulgaria.
Yes, there's actually one winery that we work with. One year they made wine with some rose water, which is one of the products of the rose industry. And they sell it exclusively to Japan, because actually a lot of Japanese people come during the rose harvest in Bulgaria, which is usually mid-May. And the Bulgarian rose is famous in Japan, apparently. So they developed that wine just for this market. And apparently it sells pretty well there, which is quite interesting.
So Vasil and Zina, we'd love to ask you a few personal questions. And if you could tell us what your biggest pet peeve is, either in business or in life.
So my biggest pet peeve is rudeness, and I think it perhaps has something to do with, of course, my personality, but also the fact that I've been in the tourism and hospitality industry for over 10 years, and I spent so many years working in hotels and taking care of guests, etc. So for me, I can't stand it when people are rude for unnecessary reasons. So I'd say my pet peeve is rudeness, just because I think that it doesn't hurt you to be polite and be kind, and I'm just used to always being polite and friendly, especially because of my work, but just my personality, I guess. So rudeness for me is my pet peeve.
Mine would be, I don't like extremes. Extremes in opinions, views, in actions. You know how they say that the poison is in the dose. So I don't like too much or too little of anything. So I guess, yeah, for me, extremeness. Maybe because I'm a Libra and I like balance. I like the middle.
I love that quote, that the poison is in the dose.
I'm writing it down right now as we're speaking.
Do you have a current favorite book or a book you're reading right now?
The last two books that I read were all from Yuval Harari. So I read Sapiens, then I read 21 Lessons to 21st Century, and now I'll be starting Homo Deus, his other book. So I've been in that type of mindset, reading a bit more philosophical, futuristic type of books at the moment.
What's your one takeaway from one of his books?
Maybe the last one that I just finished maybe 2 weeks ago, 21 Lessons for 21st Century. And I could see the logic in it, that in the future, in 21st century already, we'll probably see a large group of people who would feel useless in a way, because the skills that they've learned are no longer relevant because they've been either substituted or they're not longer relevant in the economy. And that this group of people, we have to find ways to integrate people who might feel useless, which might lead to obviously psychological effects more than anything. So that was quite of an interesting thing to think about after reading that book.
You know, that is actually a very profound thought, and it's something that we've talked a little bit about in food tourism when we talk about the state of the industry and the trends that are emerging. We see things like tablets being used for wine lists or simply to place your order. I was in a restaurant. It was not a fancy thing, but you go into this was in Portland, and you go in, and the first thing that greets you is a screen. There's no maitre d, no host, nothing. There's a screen, and I didn't know what to do because it was in the middle of the day and it wasn't a common meal time. So I stood there waiting to be seated. No one came. So I decided just to tap on the screen, and yes, there it was, because the screen had dimmed, right? So there it was, and finally I tapped on the screen, and then I realized I'm supposed to place my order. And then, so the cheekiness of this, I placed my order, and then when you go to pay, it asks if you want to give a tip. And I said, no, absolutely not. I'm doing all the work here. This is,
Sure.
the only thing that you're doing is bringing me my food. You're not getting a tip for that. So, but Zina, I understand what you mean about being hospitable, because I think that is one of the dangers of our industry. If we lose hospitality and everything becomes a robot or a tablet or a smartphone that is controlling something, then where are the people in the equation? And we can't lose the people.
Yeah, and exactly on that note, what you just shared as an example, this weekend we were at a wine hotel and spa of some partners of ours who invited us to talk at their staff training, their annual staff training. They invited us to talk about tourism. And the presentation after me was one of their marketing people, and it was an interesting slide where she talked exactly about that. The hospitality, the tourism is the people who take care of the guests. And she gave this interesting example with the restaurant in Japan, I believe it was, where it was the first fully robotized restaurant in Japan, and it went out of business because the founders of this restaurant realized that they need people to do this type of work. Hospitality needs people, basically.
And I also firmly believe that on one of our tours, one of the most important things is actually the guide and the interaction between the guide and the participants on the tour. So when we get feedback, when we get positive feedback from our customers who've taken a tour with us, and if they've had a good time, it's usually always because of what we call the tour leader. They'll mention that the wines were great. They'll mention that the lunch was great. But if they're leaving a 5-star review, they will they'll always mention the fact that the tour leader was great. So I think the personal connection is so important, and I think even more so in today's world with modern technology and just being surrounded by technology all the time. Not that technology is bad. I think that it can be integrated into the tourism experience to just elevate it. But I think that it's important to realize that technology should not be taking over in any way. We were at a really cool wine bar in Copenhagen just a few months ago called Not Your Usual Wine Bar, which was a cool name. And we actually went there because of the name, because I just thought that sounded really cool. And I was right in thinking that the wine list had some wines from sort of countries that you wouldn't normally associate with wines. You had some Croatian wines, Slovenian wines, etc. But what I thought was interesting was that when you ordered on a tablet. And on the tablet, you had this really cool interactive wine list where you could search for wine according to country or grape, etc. But you still had a smiling young waitress come out and hand us the tablet, explain the concept and how you order your wine through the tablet. And then she'd come out with your order. There was still a personal connection with her. She gave us great service, and the tablet was just there to assist in the experience, but not to completely take it over.
So what you've just said, Zina, you're talking about the server who still comes out and greets you. They explain how to use the tablet. They'll answer your questions. So really, I guess in a way they're preserving the storytelling, because that's one of the things that food-loving travelers love, is the interaction with the server, asking them their favorite places, like what's your favorite wine bar, what's your favorite biking trail, that kind of thing. And as long as the human person is still there, that still works for me. I mean, it would be impossible for someone to memorize all of the different wines. They might have 500 wines from 40 countries. How do you possibly know that inventory in your head? So you can look it up in the database on a tablet, but if you still have that human interaction, then maybe that's the future of things.
Yes, I think so, to have both. But I definitely think that the personal touch, the human-to-human interaction, that is really the most important thing when you're trying to create an authentic tourism experience for people, especially in wine and food travel.
So as we wrap up, guys, we would love to bring it back to your favorite foods and your favorite food memories. Can you tell us a little bit about what your favorite foods are or your favorite dishes in Bulgaria or outside?
Well, mine is not really a dish. Usually it's a supplement to a dish. But I just have such fond memories from my childhood helping my grandmothers making it. We call it lutenica, and it's tomato and pepper kind of paste that you boil over the fire with some spices. Some people add eggplant as well. Some add carrots instead of, to make it a bit sweeter. It's a bit similar to Ivar. Maybe more people familiar with Ivar. So it's pretty similar to Ivar. And this is really, I just have such fond memories of this, making this every September with my grandparents. And I can eat it with everything, really, with cheese, with meats, with vegetables, just with bread, on a piece of bread. It's like a spread. It's more of a spread type of thing. So this would be my all-time favorite thing.
Is that the red spread? It's usually red in color.
Yes.
I've had that. It is quite nice.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Well, for me in general, I love food, so it's a difficult question. But I'm just a huge fan of like a big bowl of pasta, which has got nothing to do with Bulgaria, but still, that's kind of like comfort food for me, and I just love it. But for me, food is always associated with a particular memory or an experience or a time of year. So during, now we're entering the Christmas season, the holiday season, there are certain foods that would be my favorite during this time of the year. And then moving into the other seasons, there would be food that I associate more with those particular seasons of the year. But I also associate food with memories. So I'll think back to like an experience I had sharing a meal with my father. The food, I feel like, evokes memories, and then you associate that food with the memory. So it's a really difficult question because at certain times of the year, at certain occasions, I like to eat different things.
We say in our industry that the restaurants and so on should be serving a memory and not a meal. So I definitely understand what you're saying about the memory part. Guys, we need to wrap up, but this has been fantastic. I am really excited now about coming to Bulgaria to meet you in person and to try more great Bulgarian wines. Thank you so much for your time today. I know it's dinner time for you, so I appreciate you taking time out to talk with us. I think we're really looking forward to seeing you sometime next year. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having us. It was a great pleasure, and of course, both of you are always welcome to come visit us in Bulgaria.
And
Oh,
we'll
thank
teach
you,
how
Zina.
to make lutenica and rakia next time you come to Bulgaria.
I can't wait.
The rose
And wine,
flavored
of
one,
course.
right? The rose flavored one?
Yeah, we
Rakia?
can try the rose flavor. Yeah, that would
All
be
right.
innovative.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. The Eat Well, Travel Better podcast is brought to you by the World Food Travel Association, the world's leading authority on food and beverage tourism. We empower local communities and businesses with the food and beverage tourism knowledge and tools needed to reach new consumers and gain a competitive edge. Founded in 2003, every year we shepherd a community of almost 100,000 professionals in over 100 countries. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And you can learn more about us, subscribe to our newsletter, and join our family at worldfoodtravel.org. Until next time, eat well and travel better.